Hey Trey, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great.
I'm doing great as well. Thank you so much for popping on with us today. And we're lucky enough to have you in the office as well today. So we're kind of double dipping, but in the best way possible. So Trey, earlier I had the chance to kind of have some one-on-one time with you, and you talked a lot about kind of small disciplines that you did, early on in the business and things that you still, do and you're still doing now. As well as some things that maybe, you dropped or don't do, right? Because it goes both ways. If you don't mind, talk to us a little bit about that and kind of the importance of what that looks like in terms of the business, but also just your life.
Well, we've done 17 podcasts since then, so I'm trying to remember what we talked about. Uh, I'm just
That's
teasing.
that's fair.
No, this is the nicest office I've ever been to. I love this office. This is now my favorite FFL office. Don't tell Andrew, Las Vegas is pretty cool, but this one's better. And there's no wonder why you guys are having the success that you have. Just seeing you guys all get together and book appointments, and I'm asking people like, how many do you have? And Rami booked like 16 appointments in 3 hours. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get an acai bowl from Pressed right now because I booked my 16. It was like 10. I'm like, dude, amazing. But I was telling Aphrodite, going back to one of the major disciplines, when I started out, Zoom is great, guys. It's a wonderful tool. You guys should all be on the dial rooms. That's all good. But dude, when I started out, my whole goal was to get around other people in person and dial. And that was one of the reasons when I started that I was so ravenous about recruiting, was I was trying to find people that would do the business with me, because this is really hard to do by yourself. Like if it's just me up in my house dialing the phone, to try to book my 12 appointments or 16 appointments for the next 2 days. And when I started, I used to dial on Sunday night. And sometimes that's the best thing ever, because people are like, they're dreading going back to work. but but and then sometimes it's the worst thing ever because they're dreading going back to work. And sometimes it's the best thing ever to dial on Sunday night because they're already drinking and they'll say yes to everything. So, but when it's just me at my house on Sunday night dialing, trying to book my appointments, it was so easy to get distracted and just like get discouraged. And maybe I get 3 no's in a row and I'm just like, oh, these leads don't work. I'll just door knock. And I would psych myself out and I would make permanent decisions off temporary emotions. But when I would get around other people in a live setting to dial on, in the office with a few other agents. And for me, those agents were Paul McLean and Andrew Taylor. That's who I dialed with. And I mean, I look back and that was a great group to dial with because they weren't trying to stay there all night, just to hang out. Like when we dialed, we were dialing to set appointments and we're trying to get it done as quickly as we possibly could. So we didn't have to do it anymore. And that simple discipline of congregating and getting together with other people that were doing the same thing was huge. And people will say things like, well, Trey, you don't understand. I'm in Pocatello, Idaho. There's no other agents here. Well, go recruit some agents so they can dial with you. That's the best thing you could do. You want to know how to raise your personal production? Recruit somebody. I think that's a huge like cheat code. And I remember having a fear of doing that early on because I was like, well, hey, there's not enough leads for me. Why would I recruit somebody else? There's always enough leads for people that'll pay for them. We've never had a lead problem for people that want to buy their own leads. Like, we'll find a way for you to buy some. But when you get around other people doing it with you, it's so much more palatable. It's so much more fun. It's less monotony. Um, and the thing with Zoom, getting on Zoom every day, like let's dial on Zoom every day, all day long. Like that's not fun. That kind of sucks. I don't want to do that all day long. But if you get on Zoom with 3 or 4 people on Monday, and it's you and your 3 or 4 people, and you guys are hanging out and you're dialing and having fun, it's a lot easier to do it. So I think that's one of the main disciplines early on was I created environments where I was forced to do the work. I was forced to show up and make it fun and get myself out of my comfort zone. Like I was talking to Aphrodite about this, like you're dialing with 3 or 4 people and they're getting no's just like you are. It's really hard to not do the work in that environment. So I think that was one of the main things I was talking to you about. Marisa, was just that simple discipline of doing this with other people. And then another simple discipline that's super important is the discipline of exercising every day. You know, you don't have to, you know, you're not necessarily going to end up like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but getting something accomplished early on, getting your right mindset early on, being up early enough to actually affect change in your day, listening to podcasts while you're doing it, and knowing that you had a success, like you actually had a win early on in the day, makes it so easy to want to continue that process. You know, the kiss of death in this business is getting to the place where you're always reactive, not proactive. If you can make yourself proactive and focusing on the things that you can control and getting those things done early on, so you set up a game you can win and you develop a power mindset by winning often, then it becomes really easy and really predictable to win. But if your day is just like, oh, there's this problem and I'm going to deal with it, and then I'm going to call the carriers and figure out why I got that charge back with Americo, and then I'm going to call the carrier and I'm going to find out why Mary didn't get approved. Oh, and then my agent, Bob, well, he has a problem because he didn't do his AML training and they're not going to pay him. So let me see, I'm going to call them back and see what's going on with that. Oh, and now Bob wants to quit because his wife said it's a scam and the leads don't work. And Bob saw something on YouTube. Let me talk Bob off the ledge because I really need to have Bob in the business. You get into a mindset and a rhythm of being reactive all day long, and this thing will suck the life out of you and have you on your knees begging God for help, which you should beg God for help. You need to pray like it's all up to him and work like it's all up to you. But the reality of it is, if you can change that from the best thing Andrew Taylor ever did for me is he was always so busy helping families and proactively getting after it that he didn't have a lot of time for a bunch of nonsense. And I was forced to deal with the nonsense on my own. Therefore, I was able to grow. I think a big trap that we fall into as you're building an agency is you try to solve everybody's problem. And that's a trap, because what happens when you try to solve everybody's problem is you try to be the rescuer. Okay, so there's three parts of the triangle. There's the rescuer, there's the savior, there's the victim, and there's the persecutor. Okay, so if Marisa comes to me with a problem and I immediately jump in and try to fix her problem, I have now taken on the role of a savior. So when she goes and she implements my advice and it doesn't work, now she's the victim. Now I'm the persecutor because I gave her the bad advice. Now she hates me. Now I'm the victim. The only way I could get out of the triangle is to play all three roles, which is not what you want. Whenever there's a problem that comes up, the first thing I need to say to Marisa is, that's interesting. What do you think you should do? And get her in a mindset of solving her own problem, taking her from a reactive state to a proactive state. So this doesn't just happen with you doing this with yourself. This is about you mentoring and teaching other people. So if like Heather would never do this. Heather's right over there in the other room. But if Heather came to me and said, oh my God, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. I'm totally about to quit. I'm going to drive my car into a tree. And she freaks out. Mental health is important. She talks about driving a car into a tree. There's like a hotline. I'll call the hotline. I'll tell them, hey, I'm not a mental health professional, obviously. Bad example. You're not going to drive a car into a tree, but you might quit insurance. Let's just start with that. Now, if she comes to me and she does that, and I say, and she says, what do you think I should do? And I'll go, what do you think you should do? And she goes, I don't know. And I'll go, here, do this. It's called perspective analysis. Here's what I want you to do. And take 5 minutes to do this right now, Heather, and then call me back. At the top of the paper, I want you to write down your problems. On the left side of the paper, I want you to write down everything that could go wrong. And then on the right side of the paper, I want you to write down everything you can do. Everything you can do. And then once you have that down, we'll talk through it. Now, what did I do? I just taught Heather how to solve her own problem. That's a discipline all of us need to get into. I woke up to a chargeback with Americo. Top of the paper, chargeback with Americo. I write down everything that could go bad, everything I feel about it on one side of the paper. And then I write down everything I can do. What can I do? I could sit in the corner and suck my thumb. I could quit insurance. I could call and cuss Americo out. Don't do that, but you could do it, but don't do it because you'll get terminated. Definitely don't do that. I could get some more leads and go sell some more policies. I could do some annual reviews. I could set an appointment with the client to see if I could save it, have them sign a cancellation letter. I could get to the office earlier with coffee for everybody and give them a gift so I'm in a good mindset, and then get on the phone and book some more appointments. I could, whatever it is. And whatever those can do things are, it could also be negative stuff. I could quit. I could give up. I could decide this isn't for me. I could go get a job at Walmart, or I don't really know where I could get a job. There's not many other things I could actually do. See, some of y'all have too many options. That's one thing I never had, was a lot of freaking options. I know it's hard to believe. I look like the person that has a lot of options. I really don't. I don't have a lot of options. Like, one time I pick up Sean Mike at the airport. We're driving through Las Vegas. It's nighttime, and he's going like this. And I'm like, Sean, what's wrong? He goes, can you even see? And I go, yeah, I can see. He goes, bro, this insurance thing has got to work for you. And I go, why? He goes, because you cannot drive Uber. And, I realized that he was right. Like, I really can't drive Uber. I can't see good or hear. And I drive slow. And I'm oblivious to my surroundings. So there was a lot when I would do these perspective analysis that I would talk to myself about things that I can do. I would get agents to come up with solutions that they can do. What can you do to fix it? A lot of this is just having the right perspective when the problems happen. Like, there's no real big problems in this business. A chargeback, roll-up debt, like, it's not, and I'm not trying to minimize it or make you feel like you're overreacting, because it can be overwhelming, because you get into this mindset of, oh my God, what's going to happen? But a healthy dose of perspective could help all of us. I heard Dominique Rogers, and I don't know, I think it's probably fair if he said this publicly. My life, not just my business, my life changed when this happened. We were doing a business opportunity meeting in Rancho Cucamonga, California, and Dom came and did the presentation. And at the end of that, he told this story, and I didn't hear this publicly a lot, but he told this story, and I'd never heard it before, but he went to the University of Miami on a scholarship to play baseball. And in his freshman year, he had a pain in his leg and a sore that just didn't seem to heal. So when he went to the doctor, he found out that he had bone cancer, or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was something like that, but it was cancer. Whatever it was freaking cancer. And they were like, oh my goodness, this guy that we just gave the scholarship to, he has cancer, and we're going to take a scholarship away. So they took away a scholarship, and he had to go get treatment for the cancer. And what he said was, he was 19 years old, maybe he was 18 years old, and where he went to get the treatment was the Children's Cancer Hospital, because he was a teenager. And he said he remembered walking in there with an attitude like, hey, we're going to go knock this out. We're going to get this done so I can go back and play baseball. And when he walked in, he saw on the wall like a picture of like a drawing of a giraffe, and then a hippopotamus and balloons everywhere. And then he met a bunch of kids that had cancer. And that perspective of how that changed the way he saw things. And all of a sudden, he was the college baseball player that was going through treatment, but he was a hero for these other kids who would give anything to be in his situation. A lot of them had much worse cancer than what he had, much worse stages and grades. And I think about that, and that's a problem. Like, you can't write a check and get rid of cancer. God willing, you get cancer, you get cured. And I mean, Dom's super healthy now, and everything's great. But it's not just a problem that you can solve on your own, But a chargeback, a little bit of roll-up debt, dude, you can set more appointments, you can get more leads, you can have a better attitude, you can get some better training. A lot of the problems that you encounter in this business, they're designed in order for you to get the experience so you can ask the right questions so you don't repeat the problem. Everything happens for a reason. I can look back, some of God's greatest gifts that I've ever received in this business came in ugly wrapping paper. They were disguised as problems. They were disguised as, oh my God, the sky is falling. And when I look back on it, it's the best thing that ever freaking happened. Like there's dozens of things like that that we can point to. And not just the best thing that ever going to happen for me, but a lot of it was the best thing that ever happened for Family First Life. A lot of those things came disguised as these big crushing problems. So I would just say maintain the right perspective, make a discipline of doing that perspective analysis, make a discipline around getting around people who see your solution, not just the problem, and then make a decision that no matter what, you'll be here a year from now. I think that that's the number one thing. Anybody trying to really figure this thing out, the number one thing you could do is just resolve that no matter what, you'll be here a year from now. Because the problems you're dealing with now, everybody goes through the same stuff. And in order to get through it, you just got to go through it. And then you'll all of a sudden the answers will appear. And what's hard to do now will be hard not to do. What's uncomfortable to do now will be uncomfortable not to do it. You build stamina. You know, when Heather started, we were talking to Heather about the journey that she's had and how difficult this was from the beginning and all the changes that she had to make. Well, the amount of telesales she does now, those were impossible a year ago. That seemed impossible. But now it's weird not to do it. She's the same person. She's grown, you know, she's matured, but she's essentially the same person. It's just that she's gone through all this experience so that the thing that seemed totally insurmountable is like, it's no big deal now. And that just comes from a lot of trial and a lot of error, a lot of patience, a lot of grace, not beating yourself up over everything all the time, not talking about how bad it is, but talking about things that are going right, not the things that are going wrong. You know, not asking yourself, what if this doesn't work? We need to start asking ourselves, what if it does work? I think one of the most powerful things, I did a podcast with Heather, that's why I'm picking on Heather. But one of the most powerful things that she said was, you know, she went to the conference and she saw this guy that was making like a gazillion dollars. And she said, I don't even know what that even means or looks like because you really don't. What's weird about this business is when you start succeeding in the business, it doesn't seem like you're succeeding. It seems like it's freaking falling apart and you're failing all the time. You just have more cash flow and more money. Like it doesn't feel like I never felt like it was actually going good. By the time I felt like it was going good, it was so obnoxiously going well that I realized, holy crap, this is actually working. But I still felt like I was getting no-showed all the time and people were quitting left and right. And, you know, and the lead source went away. And this lead vendor, the guy won't even answer the phone anymore. How am I going to get leads from him? And I was always dealing with these things that just seemed like it was just not going the right direction. But what I figured out is you get paid by the size of the problems that you solve. So if you want to get paid more, you got to solve bigger problems. You know, put the cans on the bottom and the bread on top. That's bagging groceries. That's not solving a lot of problems. You don't get paid a lot for that. But as you grow in this business, solving more problems, helping people solve bigger problems, you'll get paid more money. And that doesn't mean it's without its frustrations, because it's always going to feel like work, but it does tend to work out over time. Time is your friend in this business. The best thing you do is make a decision to just be here and figure out a way to stick it out. I don't even remember what the question was, Marisa.
No, and Trey, I just let you rip it because you're talking about small disciplines and things that essentially like these small changes that really can fix or make or break everything in your business. And I think when you said if someone's always reactive and not productive, that really hit home for me because I know that through certain times in the business, like you said, problems arose and I ended up being reactive for X days or weeks even and not productive, and it hurt me. But what I realized when I was going through problems that I hadn't dealt with in the business, when I just walk through them, almost in a similar way that you just, you know, really set up nicely the perspective analysis, it helped me understand why I was going through the problems and stay productive and not reactive. Because when you have nothing to do all day, or like you said, you're making the list to call America and tell them about themselves, or call this, you're making all these excuses versus what can I control? And
Right.
I think that when we focus on what can I control, like we realize like, hey, that's what we have control over, and anything else it's in God's hands, right? We can control what we can control. So I love that perspective analysis because I know I've done something similar quite a few times, and it really does help you understand like where you're at. And also, like you said, Trey, like becoming almost that like the savior, right? It's like it's a lose-lose situation, if you will. So sometimes you want to be the magic or answer every single question or whatever it might be. But just remember, take a step back, control what you can control, and keep moving forward. In this business, you know, Trey, I've always looked to you because you always have said if you can make a decision to be here a year from now, basically you've already won half the battle, right? And I think that that's really powerful. And if you don't mind, just kind of in closing, will you talk to us a little bit about how you essentially came up with that perspective of like, if I'm going to be here in a year from now, or how you've been able to almost challenge agents about if you're going to be here in a year from now, almost what does that look like? And how has that helped you grow so much in this business? Like your group's helping over what, 6,000 families a month? Like that's insane. It's
4,000, but I appreciate that. I see where you're going.
okay. Hey, soon to be 6, right? You know,
Yes.
so obviously you've went through a lot of these kind of growing pains, if you will, but you've been able to stay even keeled. And I'm sure you have your highs and lows at times, but you always level out. And I've always seen that in you. So if you don't mind, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, a big part of it is it really has to do with vision. And the thing about vision is you can only go as far as you can see. And when I just got started, as far as I could see was just like making enough money to help pay the house payment and keep the kids in the school where they go. Like that, I could see that. Like I could see making enough sales to where when I got the electric bill, the bill was blue, not red. Because I wasn't behind on it anymore. Like if I could make a couple sales a weekend, like that's as far as I could see. But what you have to realize is when you get there, you'll be able to see further. And I always understood that. Like no matter what the mountain is, when you get to the top of it, there's always another mountain. And it has to do with, you know, I remember this time in the business where I felt like I was just going through the motions and I wasn't having the success that I once was having. And I don't know, it was just a weird place. And I remember I talked to Andrew, and then Andrew said, hey, the reason why it's like that is because you need to really just focus on figure out what you want and write it down and like put it places. And I'm like, well, dude, I already did that. And then what I realized is like, I'd already gotten what I wanted. So I needed something else. I needed something else to drive me, to pull me to the destination. And a lot of times we get so caught up on like these 5 and 10-year goals. And then we also get caught up on like this self-indulgence of goals. When this really started to work for me is when I stopped thinking about what I was going to get for myself, and I started getting more excited about what other people wanted for themselves, and understood the role of my activity and what I could do to influence where they were going. So for instance, when Elaine was my office admin and they were getting ready to be kicked out of their house, and she was dang near on food stamps because I wasn't able to pay her that much, she went and got her insurance license, and she went out there and worked harder than anybody I'd seen up until that point, because she had a real strong reason to do it, because her husband had issues where he had to have back surgeries and things were going on. And when I started focusing on her goals, then what happened was my work ethic actually had to match her work ethic, because I couldn't be getting to the office at 10 when she was there at 7. I couldn't be coming home from the field at 5 when she was still going at 10. And so once it was no longer about me, and I realized that what I did had an impact on other people, then I had that accountability that I was always looking for. That played a big role in it. So if I ever get stuck, that's what I get back to. I start talking to people about what they want. I start trying to figure out what it is. Like Marisa, like what would this look like if you were doing $1 million a month as an agency? Do you really know what that would look like? Do you know what that income opportunity would be? The opportunity to start talking with integrity and what that would mean. If I could really get people to see that and figure out if that's something you really want, well, I'll work harder to help you get there than I would to help me get, whatever. Like I was happy poor. I've never had an issue being happy. I'm happy all the time. Like really, I never, there was never like a material thing that moved me, like ever. I used to feel weird about that. I used to feel like there was something wrong with me because I still drive a Honda Civic and people are like, why don't you want this thing? And I'm like, dude, and I'm not the super benevolent person either. I have lots of issues, trust me, but that's just not one of them. Like I don't get excited about stuff. I do get excited about experiences though. Like if the Lakers would have won, I would have went to the NBA finals for sure with my kids. That would have been cool as heck. I can't go now. I mean, if Boston wins, I'm in Boston, right? I have to say I would. I really wouldn't, but I just don't want you guys to get mad at me. But yeah, that's pretty much. I don't know if I answered the question, but
You did. And I think it's important. Like you said, we all have that vision. And when we come in, that vision might be, hey, I don't want my bank account to be negative. I know for me that I was like, hey, I got $500. Like I hope we make it, right? And but I knew I was going to, because it was that forward goal, like you said, of seeing like, hey, everything's on time. Hey, you have more than you need in your bank account. Hey, there's stuff in the savings. And as you grow, like you said, Trey, I love that you mentioned like it stops becoming about you and it starts becoming about other people. Because like you said, you already got to a point where you're like, hey, I got what I want, but now I want to help other people get what they want. And I think that there's a lot of power in that because I don't think that everybody really feels that way, right? Like if we're all being honest. But I think we're extremely lucky to be working alongside you, Trey, because I know and I see that in you even before working directly with you. So I think that's just really powerful. And it's something we should all think about. Like, hey, maybe you had a vision coming in, but maybe it's been a while since you asked yourself some of the questions that Trey just threw out there, right? Myself included. So it's like, let's get back to that vision. Where are we going? What's the next goal, right? What's the next accomplishment? Do you know where your next promotion's at? Who's the next person you want to help? Who else could really benefit from this opportunity, right? What are other ways that you can fill your cup, even though maybe you feel like, hey, I already got what I want. My cup's already full. Well, guess what? You can always keep filling it up, right? So Trey, you absolutely crushed this call in terms of just the ins and outs of the mindset of the business and what it looks like going through the business. And here's what I will say, growing through the insurance industry, it's the most like it's like the best thing you can ever do, because not only do you grow as a business owner, but you grow as a person directly. And that's what I love about this industry. If you're growing in the business, you're growing as a person too, because it all coincides. Just bringing it back to morning routines. Like Trey's like, hey, like you got to get that exercise in, get yourself feeling good in the morning. Like it's not necessarily just about the exercise. It's about how do you feel about yourself, right? Because that's going to react onto other people and reflect onto other people. So Trey, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. And thanks for being in here with us today. Truly appreciate it. Before we hop off, does anybody have any questions for Trey? Feel free to unmute yourself. Come on, guys. No one has a question.
That means I did really good. So I'm going to put my phone number in the chat in case you guys don't have it.
Perfect.
Anybody needs me for anything, make sure you call.
Yes. So
smoke signal, whatever. I'm here to help.
Trey, how important is it to share the opportunity with your warm market?
Oh my goodness. Well, what's interesting about this is if you look at anybody's leaderboard, that is what it was. Like I don't even know how Marisa got involved, but let's say you work cold market. If you look at your team, it's warm market. There's the occasional cold market person that gets in there, but if they're going to grow, it's warm market. It always is. I don't know the person where it was all cold market. Like I was having this conversation with Wetmore, and Wetmore's like, I've always been big with cold market. And I'm like, why? Because you recruited Athena? Like, it's you recruited Zach cold market? Look at Zach's team. It's all warm market. If we didn't focus on that, it wouldn't have worked. I was talking to Mark Mead about it. Some of the biggest growth in the company in the last 2 years has come from people that Mark's known for 20 years. So it's super important. We should be recruiting every way that we can. But what you'll realize is when you look back at the real growth, the places change, the people change, the way we reach the people change, the names change, but the story is always the same. And what the story is somebody talked to somebody who didn't think they could do it. They got good at it and told their friends. And that's what happens. So you just can't cut that part of the business off. You have to engage in it early. And what you got to understand is it's a process. It's not an event. So just getting into the routine of being proactive about telling people about the opportunity and letting the chips fall where they may. If each one of you had a goal of every day, just taking a couple people from not knowing to knowing, if that's the goal, it's not so much how. It's not the how. The how is easy. The how will appear. Like, even if you don't know the how, if the goal is, I'll take a couple people a day from not knowing to knowing, then you'll do whatever you have to do that. And a big hack to this, you guys should all do this. You should get a calendar and put it on your wall, and it doesn't have to be dated, but just blocks of 1 through 31. So 1 through 7, 8 through 14, 15 through 21, whatever. And, like big boxes. And every day that you take 2 people from not knowing to knowing, at least 5 days out of the week, put an X in the box. And your goal is just to have a bunch of X's. Like, I just did it every single day. And some days it could be 5 people, but there's never a day where it's less than 2. And if you'll do that for a year, there's no way you're not a senior sales manager. Like, I don't even know if it's impossible not to be a senior sales manager if you did that for a year. Even if it was just a bunch of strangers that you met at the gas station, there's better ways to do it. But if you just got in the habit of it, eventually you get better at it. Like, for me, when I started, it was literally like, if I didn't do it with 2 people and I was driving home from appointments, when I got gas at the gas station, I'd tell the attendant, hey, do you keep your income options open, or do you want to work at Shell for the next 20, 30 years? And they'd say, well, I guess. And I say, look, I'm not weird. Here's a website. I sell insurance. We need people. You're super nice. You might be good at it. When you get there, put in your name and phone number. It just goes to my manager, and he'll give you a chance to fill out a form at the end and see if you qualify for an interview. And that was it. Like, was that a really good one? Probably not, but at least I could check the box. And if I did that enough, I took 500 people a year from not knowing to knowing. I mean, what are the odds that 50 of them don't raise their hand and say, I want to do it? And out of those 50, what are the odds that I can't find 5 that can help 20 families a month? And if I did it for a year and those 5 did it with me next year, now instead of having 5 people doing it, now we got 30 people doing that. And if those 30 wrote 20 a month, that's 600 a month. If you got a 10% spread on that, that's 60 a month. Like, that was my business plan. That's actually what it was. I remember sitting down with Andrew and saying, dude, here's the business plan. This is what I'm going to do. He's like, whatever, dude. We'll see. That was his attitude about it. But I was like, this is what I'm going to do. This will work. And sure enough, within 2 years of doing that, I was dang near right at that number. Now, did I have 30 people writing 20? No, but I probably had 3 writing 40 and 10 writing 20 and a bunch writing 10 to 15 and a few writing a little bit, and it worked out. The numbers just kind of worked out. So the trick to that, though, is doing it every single day. It's like, this is the last story I'll give you guys, because I know you got other stuff to do. You don't want to listen to me for an hour. But, okay, the thing I've noticed about all you people in Massachusetts is you guys have great dental care. Everybody I've seen here has great dental care. So you'll relate to this. Now, Marisa, is it better? How many times a day do you brush your teeth, Marisa? Twice. Okay, I knew you were going to say at least twice. So is it better to brush your teeth twice a day or 700 times on New Year's Eve.
Definitely twice a day.
But you brush your teeth the same amount of time. Right? Like if you brushed your teeth, you got to go to the dentist once a year on January 1st, but you brushed your teeth 700 times on December 31st. Is the dentist going to be happy with you or not happy with you? They may not happy with you. But if you brush your teeth twice a day for 365 days, just 350 days, you can miss 15 whole days. The dentist would be much happier. You get much better results. Does that make sense? That's like what this business is.
Yeah.
It's the process of doing it every day. Like, can you take people from not knowing about FFL to knowing about FFL every day, like you bathe and brush your teeth? You know, can you show up to dial day? Like you show up to dial day. Y'all will never miss a dial day. You have to get your appointments. Monday and Thursday, you're here. Just include that same discipline on a daily basis, having a couple 5-minute conversations. And then what's going to look like is it's going to get messy. People are going to fall through the cracks. It's going to be super overwhelming. You're going to be like, oh, what happened to Bob? Crap, I forgot Bob got contracted. Oh, he's selling real estate now. I screwed up with Bob. No, you didn't. Bob wasn't going to do it anyway. You're looking for the ones that will also reach out to you. It's not just about you huddling everybody together. If you do enough activity, the ones that are going to do it will appear. They'll show up. You can't run them off. They're like, Mark, you really calling me again? Yes, I'm in a home. Oh, what? You're in a home? Where'd you get leads? The ILC, stupid. Where do you think I got them? How'd you hear about that? I was on a podcast. I heard Grady talk about it and Erica Walker. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. How can I help? Well, I'm just trying to figure out if I should do and you'll get people like that. And you're like, how did that happen? Well, it's just from consistently doing it every single day and realizing that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like it's going to be super messy. People are going to come, people are going to go. They're going to come back. They're going to sell some. They're going to quit. Some are going to roll you debt. You're going to have all this stuff happen. But if you're just consistent with that activity, what happens is everybody starts to do it. And when everybody starts to do it, you can't lose. You cannot lose in that situation. There's way more on the front end than there is on the back end. And that just comes from consistent, persistent activity every day. Just like what you'll read in the compound effect from someone that I happen to know, by the way. I know Darren Hardy, which, okay, different story, but I don't want to name drop, but anyway.
I love that. And it's that one simple thing like brushing your teeth, right? We all, hopefully brush our teeth in the morning. It's like
We all
add that
definitely
small.
Everybody does on this call, but there are people. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
I'm like, well, hey, you should probably build that into in the morning. But no, taking the two people from not knowing to knowing is something that I feel like if we all did on this call, like Trey said, it's inevitable that everybody would see growth and better results because it's that compounding effect, right? So I love that. Talk to your warm market. I know for me, being in the industry for a while, sometimes it's like, oh, well, should I really reach out to this person? No matter what it looks like on social media, you guys want to remember, you don't know what predicament they're in, right? The economy isn't so hot right now. So offering somebody a potential extra income is not a bad thing to do. So the worst they can tell you is, no, I'm all set, but thanks, right? So keep that in mind, guys. Trey, thanks for being on.